really honestly believe that law enforcement is complicit in her crime.
Did a San Diego police officer kill 22-year-old Donna Gentile? Her first cousin wants to know, 33 years after Gentile's naked body was found off Sunrise Highway. Her neck was broken, she had been strangled, and rocks were stuffed down her throat.
If someone is found with rocks being stuffed in their mouth, it is a symbolism of you're a snitch, you've talked.
Donna Gentile talked all right, publicly.
He said that he was going to turn Lieutenant Carl Black into the captain for having relations with me.
She was a prostitute who testified before the Civil Service Commission 5 weeks before she was killed about inappropriate relationships she had with 2 San Diego cops.
Well, he was over my apartment a few times. I had sexual contact with him.
Officer Larry Averick and Lieutenant Carl Black denied the allegations, but both of them were fired in the wake of the scandal, although Black was later reinstated.
You have a girl who gets a lieutenant fired. A lieutenant is a big deal for a woman to get fired in 1985.
In a new book, The Donna Gentile Story, author Anita DeFrancesco describes the events leading up to her cousin's murder. There is new evidence in the book, like this letter Gentile wrote to her family from the Las Colinas jail just 2 months before she was killed. "My life is in danger when I get out," the letter said, literally predicting her murder.
She said she was in danger, and she begged to stay in jail a little longer because she felt that they were waiting for her.
Currently, the San Diego Sheriff's Department won't talk about evidence in the case, like a bite mark found on Gentile's body and one of her earrings missing from the crime scene.
I really don't think a serial killer did this.
Now, 33 years later, the woman who wrote the book on Donna Gentile's life and death still is hoping for justice.
I think someone does know, and I think it's being kept a secret.
David Gottfredson, News 8.
The remainder of Gentile's autopsy remains sealed at the request of the San Diego Sheriff's Department.
22-year-old Donna Gentile, a convicted prostitute. Her body, discovered near Pine Valley, had been badly beaten and strangled. There was no sign of a struggle. There are no suspects. 5 weeks earlier, Gentile had testified at former police officer Larry Averick's hearing. Averick, fired from the police department in January, was trying to get his job back.
He was fired because he provided a known prostitute with inappropriate information about what police activities were going to be taking place along El Cajon Boulevard in regard to prostitution.
For what purpose?
For the purpose of keeping her from being arrested by undercover operations.
Gentile claimed Averick also had sex with her, but that could not be substantiated. Averick says he was using Gentile to obtain information about misconduct on the part of his superior officer, Lieutenant Carl Black. Black was subsequently demoted to sergeant. His case is also on appeal. Gentile had maintained all along that Black was trying to help her get off the streets. Gentile's attorney says it was Averick she was afraid of.
For the last 7 or 8, 9 months, she had indicated to me that she feared for her life. That from the time that she had made a complaint against a member of the police force, she feared retaliation.
Had he ever made any threats to her?
To my knowledge, no.
Gentile, who was convicted of prostitution, began serving a 90-day jail sentence March 13th. On that day, she handed her attorney an audio tape.
She instructed me to give them to a member of the media and asked that they be played in the event that something happened to her.
So she was anticipating her death?
She was fearful of her death.
Donna Gentile has been called a convicted prostitute, a liar, a person who would burn members of the police department. What would you call her? How would you describe her?
She was a convicted prostitute, whatever that means. A liar she was not. Out to burn a cop? No.
There's talk about Ronald Porter had, former Marine, that there was Marine training. All Marines got trained in brushing out crime scenes. What do you make of that?
It's absolute baloney. Marines are not trained to brush out anything unless they are in a specific assignment where that might be of some necessity. I read some language in a book written by Larry Averick, who stated that beginning in boot camp, enlistees, young Marines are trained in brush out. Nothing could be further from the truth than that ridiculous statement. That just doesn't happen.
Does that indicate that a law enforcement person might be involved in the crime?
It doesn't indicate that a law enforcement person was involved. It does, but it certainly leads in a reasonable and well-trained homicide investigator to look in that particular direction, and particularly when you find out the type of a lifestyle that the decedent may have been involved in.
Gravel in her mouth. Larry Averick says putting the gravel in the mouth of a rape victim is fairly common. He's seen it in other crimes, and it's done to keep the victim from screaming. What do you make of that?
It's a crock.
Why?
Because it doesn't happen in that as frequently as that. I've investigated virtually hundreds of sexual assault cases, and it is very, very rare. And it's very rare, as a matter of fact, as far as homicide victims are concerned. Having rocks or gravel or some such thing tapped down to an individual's windpipe is very, very unusual, and it is very rare. I don't care what Mr. Averick says. The gravel wasn't just something that was basically forced into her mouth. It was literally tamped down her throat. The cause of, even though her neck had been fractured at the second cervical vertebrae. The problem is there is no evidence of a police involvement, although she was on the payroll for the Internal Affairs Division of the San Diego Police Department, informing them of police officers. She was targeted. Is that the reason she was murdered? I don't know. But it certainly is a consideration.
But the fact that she had testified against Larry Averick certainly made him a potential suspect, along with other police officers that either had been involved with her or were going to go to Internal Affairs. If anyone's ever charged with Donna's murder, the first thing the defense is going to do is try to find him, see if he'll testify in court, find the other police officers involved, and make it look like they're the guys that did the murder.
Think her case will ever be solved?
That's a very, very difficult question to answer. My suspicion is that had that stupid task force not been formed, if it had remained under the jurisdiction of the San Diego Sheriff's Department, it's a pretty good likelihood that it would have been solved.
Complicating the investigation were rumors that police officers might have been involved in a murder or two.
I can state flatly that no police officers were involved in the murder of any prostitutes.
The most high-profile victim was Donna Gentile, a prostitute and police informant. For years, rumors persisted that some San Diego police officers had a hand in her murder. When her friend Cynthia Main disappeared, there were more questions about cops. But the task force says this man killed Gentile and perhaps her friend. Ronald Porter is already serving time for killing another woman in the same series of murders.
The evidence we have would certainly preclude us from prosecuting anyone else. So your question is well taken, but are we about to charge him? No, not at this time.
The task force says Porter may be responsible for 13 of the unsolved murders and that there may never be enough evidence to prosecute him on any of them.
But because of the circumstances surrounding her death, people in the community and the press have assumed or suspected that maybe police officers were responsible for her killing. And that's been going on for years and years and years. By naming Mr. Porter as a suspect, it kind of takes a monkey off their back, and very conveniently.
The DA praised the task force, calling it the most effective agency of its kind in the country. By phone, a former sheriff's investigator disagrees.
I think to accept that task force is the most successful task force in the country is an absurd statement.
Streed, one of the original members of the task force, was yanked from the agency. He says the San Diego Police Department got involved in the murder investigations for only one reason: damage control.
Well, there certainly was an indication in the course of that investigation of motives to cover up. I had contacted police officers that were told that if they were caught talking to me, they would lose their jobs.
The task force says 26 of the 43 murders are now solved. The 5-year effort is winding down for good. Liz Purcell, News 8.
I really don't think a serial killer did this.
Now, 33 years later, the woman who wrote the book on Donna Gentili's life and death still is hoping for justice.
I think someone does know, and I think it's being kept a secret.
David Gottfredson, News 8.
The remainder of Gentili's autopsy remains sealed at the request of the San Diego Sheriff's Department.
Our family wants the autopsy unsealed. This is a message from my whole family that we really want this autopsy revealed. We want to know what we want. We're entitled as a family. We're entitled as a family to know what's going on with her autopsy. Maybe they can reopen the case and start to reinvestigate this, because it's still alive in a lot of people's hearts, and especially our family, because we're not sitting well with this all these years because of the way she was murdered. I really, really honestly believe that law enforcement is complicit in her crime, or at least they had something to do with it. Maybe not them, but maybe they had something to do with it. Other police officers could have said, oh my God, if she could take a lieutenant down, what else can she do? And this was 1985, and she was a young prostitute. If you're taking a lieutenant down, that's a big deal. And that, even today, in today's times, with all the police officers and everyone going down for all this profiling stuff that we have going on, I think that when they heard a lieutenant went down, even though Black did get his job back, I feel that maybe that put fear in others that may not have been doing anything wrong, and maybe they thought, hey, maybe she's reporting on me. So anyone could have wanted her out of the way, so to speak.